This is the Endgame Gear XM2W Essential Edition, the long-awaited wireless update to the legendary XM1.
He's Eric, and I'm Devin, and today we'll be talking in depth about the shape, specs, and other features of this mouse to see if it is the right one for you. And stick around till the end of the video so you can see where this mouse ends up in our tier list.
For reference in this section, my hands are about 18.5 by 10 centimeters. The XM2We has the same shape as the XM1, which is one of the most loved shapes for numerous claw grips for medium to large hands. Looking at the dimensions, you can note the defining features of the XM2, such as the hump pushed towards the back, extremely wide back flares, and a narrow grip width for the size. The diamond-shaped profile of the hump combined with the very wide back flares means the XM2 fills out a lot of my palm in a conventional claw grip, making it extraordinarily stable. The narrow grip width in combination with the very wide sweeping back flares creates good places to brace your thumb and pinky finger against. This allows you to pull the mouse into your palm for more stability and makes pivoting the mouse side to side easier. However, the large hump and wide flares are very restrictive for side to side micro adjustments. The XM2 also has very noticeable ledging on the sides, not only to aid in liftoff, but to angle the fingers in a way that prevents hand cramping. While the ledging does prevent hand pain, it makes the mouse near unusable for people with smaller hands, as you have to wrap your hands around the ledges to get a comfortable grip. Towards the front of the mouse, the XM2 has low button height for good precision, and a slight front flare, which may allow for some ring and pinky support, if you extend your fingers. I only really have one complaint with the shape of the XM2, and that is the complete lack of comfort grooving on the buttons. For me, comfort grooving is important in ensuring that I get a consistent grip each time I pick up a mouse, and its absence on the XM2 means the mouse can sometimes sit at a slightly different angle in my hand. The XM2We competes very closely with the Lamzu Atlantis, as the two have very similar shapes, but with a few differences. Most notably, the hump designs are different, with the Atlantis having a wider and more centralized hump, which doesn't angle my hand back as much as the XM2. The XM2 is also very slightly narrower at the grip, though the back flare starts earlier and at a slightly less aggressive angle, which can make the XM2 feel a bit wider and fill out the thumb area a bit more. Meanwhile, at the front flare, the XM2 is actually a bit rounder and bulkier, which leads to a different feel for those to extend their fingers. Finally, the Atlantis does have some very flat and minimal comfort grouping on the main buttons, which can help slightly with the grip alignment for me. We've already done an in-depth comparison of the XM1 to the Sora, so let's focus on the X2. While the XM2 shares a somewhat similar side profile to the X2, the two shapes feel almost entirely different. The main thing I prefer on the X2 shape are the deep comfort grooves, which really lock my fingers in. The straight sides on the X2 contrast heavily with the aggressive flares on the XM2. Wow, these names suck. Leading to the X2 to feel much wider towards the middle of the mouse, but narrower in the palm. This makes the X2 more suitable for inner hand micro adjustments. The ledging on the X2 is also much less aggressive, which makes the mouse a lot safer for a wider variety of hand sizes. While the X2 is a safer shape, I greatly prefer the XM2 for the more aggressive grip styles. Let us know if you like these shape comparisons by giving us a like and subscribing, please. Overall, the XM2 has an amazing shape for various claw grips, but is not very safe due to the pronounced ledging, wide flaring, and large hump. The grip styles I most recommend it for are aggressive claw, pincer claw, relaxed claw, and tilt claw for medium to large hands, as well as relaxed fingertip grip for those with large hands. At a weight of just 62 grams, the XM2We is over 8 grams lighter than the XM1. The XM2We feels very light and nimble in hand, though noticeably heavier than the 55-gram Lamzu Atlantis. The higher weight compared to the Atlantis has not affected my performance noticeably, especially due to the superb weight distribution on the XM2, which is among the best of any wireless mouse. The great weight combined with the shape makes this mouse my best performer for CSGO, which I've been trying to get better at. I still prefer the Atlantis Mini for games with more reactive tracking, however. If there's one thing that Endgame Gear is known for, it's great build quality. The XM2We is one of the most well-built mice I felt in the 60-gram range, along with the Death Adder V3 Pro. There's pretty much zero flexing no matter how hard I squeeze on the sides and top. There is a bit of bottom flexing, but that won't affect use at all. My unit of the mouse did have some pretty heavy buttons squeaking out of the box. I reached out to Endgame Gear for an update, and they said the issue has been identified and won't occur on future units.
The battery life on the XM2We is excellent, lasting for over a week of heavy use while pulling at its max rate of 1000 Hz. And if you do happen to forget to charge the mouse over that week, the mouse has both 2.4 GHz and wired modes. And the USB-C charging cable it comes with is pretty light and relatively flexible while remaining stiff enough to stay out of the way, particularly when paired with its nice angled stress relief. The XM2We does use a 3370 sensor, which is relatively older, but still performs very well. The only real downside of it compared to newer sensors like the 3395 is that it doesn't have built-in motion sync. It uses a complex MCU with no noticeable latency, and we tested the click latency to be roughly 3.6 milliseconds, which is in line with other mice using complex MCUs. It is also worth noting that the XM2W if it ever actually comes out, is slated to have better performance than the XM2We, having a 3395 sensor with that built-in motion sync and custom firmware that implements latch debouncing for lower click latency. However, these for the most part are really just improvements on paper and won't really be felt in game.
The main buttons on the XM2We use the Go optical switches, which have an extremely snappy and tactile actuation. Despite being optical, as these switches have broken in, they become nearly indistinguishable from mechanicals. They are quite a bit heavier than I would like, but they are still very spammable. These clicks have almost no pre-travel, and a nice amount of post-travel for a softer bottom out. There is quite a bit more post-travel closer to the scroll wheel, but I've never noticed this in use. Overall, these are quite good clicks. Better than the XM1R, but not on the level of mice like the Atlantis Mini in my opinion. The side buttons and scroll click use KL 2.0 switches and are among the most tactile on the market. Both the side buttons and scroll click have a good amount of pre and post travel, making them feel very spammable. The scroll wheel uses a TTC silver encoder and has a very nice tight tensioning with well-defined steps while not being too loud. This is among my favorite scroll wheels I've tried. Here's a sound test of all the buttons. The XM2 uses the same rubberized coating as the previous matte versions of the XM1. This coating is extraordinarily grippy and remains grippy in spite of sweat. Overall, this is one of the best coatings on the market, though it can get dirty pretty easily. The skates on the XM2We are large and thick, I mean they cover a lot of surface area, and have very well-rounded edges. As a result, the mouse has an extremely smooth though somewhat slow glide. These are pretty good feet and don't need to be replaced, but aftermarket skates will be a bit better. The XM2We has adjustable debounce down to 0 milliseconds in its software, which means all clicks can be registered. This mouse probably gets higher CPS than any other. Despite the heavy actuation of the clicks, the XM2We is decent for jitter clicking, due to the great travel and tensioning on the buttons. I can maintain a click speed of around 13 to 15 CPS while jittering on this mouse. Due to the wide buttons, I can easily hit over 25 CPS when butterflying on the XM2We. And for drag clicking, the XM2We performs better than every other mouse, including the Bloody A bedless, due to its fantastically grippy coating. I can easily hit over 40 CPS on this mouse, and I have even surpassed 60 CPS on occasion.
The XM2We was certainly worth the wait. It's basically just a better and wireless XM1R. Because of this, it lands in S tier on our tier list. In terms of value, the XM2We comes in at just $80, which undercuts the similarly shaped Lamzu Atlantis by $10, and comes in at $15 less than recent releases like the Pulsar X2 and the Ninjutsu Sora. Keeping that in mind, I'd say this is one of the best value wireless mice in this more premium mouse bracket. In terms of the seemingly mythical XM2W, I personally just wouldn't recommend waiting for it. It will likely be significantly more expensive than the XM2We, and we still don't have any release date on it.